Start recording. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 2025 October webinar on using emotional intelligence to navigate your work. It's going to be facilitated by TaTa-Nisha Frazier. My name is Dwayne Ellis. I'm the Outreach and Training Coordinator for the Georgia Council for Recovery. Above all, I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is that it has been 9 years since I felt the need to use any mind-altering drugs to change the way that I feel. Today, I not only speak out loud to show others in addiction or in recovery that their voice matters, but also because silence never did me any good. It never healed me. And stigma and shame are no longer reasons for me to stay quiet. This 1.5 hour interactive training helps participants enhance their emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, manage, and use emotions effectively. It builds self-awareness, empathy, and communication skills to strengthen relationships, navigate challenges, and enhance personal and professional success. We're going to go over some housekeeping really quick. This will be an interactive um, training, so we ask for your engagement and participation. Please keep your microphone mute if you're not speaking, as hosts will mute people as needed. Everyone who remains until the end of this webinar will receive 1.5 CEUs. You'll receive a certificate from Alvin Cotton, our data outreach coordinator, probably next week. Anyone who shows up more than 15 minutes late or must step away from that long may continue to attend the webinar, but they will not receive credit. The certificates will likely go out again early next week and it'll be from Alvin. Make sure to check your spam or your junk folder because sometimes they go there. Make sure the name on your screen matches the name you want on your certificate. Make sure the name on your already read that. So we're going to do a poll before we get started. We want to know who's here. There it is. And launched. Got a lot of cares, CPSADs, CPSMH coming in second so far. A couple clinicians, peer mentors. I'll give y'all about 20 more seconds. Good morning, April. And I'm going to end the poll now and share the results. So that's what we got. 67% cares, 28% CPS and MH. We got a couple recovery allies, clinicians, and even a couple aspiring to be a cares. Cool. Without further ado, I will turn it over to TaTa-Nisha.
All right. Hello, everyone. It is nice to see so many folks on the call webinar who are interested in learning some information about emotional intelligence. This webinar is really designed to just bring the awareness back for those of us who have been taught, and for those who have not been taught anything about emotional intelligence. This is an opportunity for you to learn today. My hope is that that you walk away with something that helps you manage your work environment in a better way. I will always say thank you to the clinicians who show up in the room. As certified peer specialists, we often work with clinicians, and we have to manage how we navigate those work teams. And clinicians are a very big part of that. So thank you for being here. I want to thank the Recovery Allies for also being here, but more importantly, all of the cares. You aspiring cares, welcome in. It's really good to get this information off the rip. Very, very good to learn this information early in your recovery journey. All right. So this little girl right here, was not taught how to manage her emotions. I became a master at pushing my feelings down, and rage, silence, and drug and alcohol misuse was a big part of how I dealt with my emotions. I never really learned until later in life. And I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to learn. It is always a constant work in progress. And so I will sit here and I'll tell you right now, I do not have this thing 100% down. And I have good days and I have bad days. So I want to say to you, give yourself some grace. And just remember that recovery, emotional recovery, is always a work in progress, always. One of the things that I had to learn how to do is to ask myself, why? Why? Why do I feel the way I feel? How am I allowing this to happen? And what can I do about it? And it took many, many opportunities for me to sit in silence, ask myself the question, and be honest about the truth of what that is. I've learned that I'm responsible for my emotions, that no one else is responsible but me. I work hard every day to manage them. I really do. And my new superpower is to pause, to ask questions, and when I feel like I'm heading towards rage, to walk away. And so this little girl became very good. If you could see that picture really well, you can see that I have tears welled up in my eyes. And very early on, I was always very, very clear about how I wanted to look. And when I didn't have the power to speak about what I wanted, it came up in tears and rage. And so this little girl learned how to smile through it, even when she didn't want to. My mom made me put on that ugly dress, and I hated that dress because that's what she wanted me to wear. And I didn't have the ability to say, this makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't feel confident, you know. And I was a little girl. Probably didn't even have the language. But some of our first teachers are our parents. And if they haven't learned how to do it, they can't show you how to do it. Sometimes you have to find it in other places. Just a few house rules. Take notes. If something resonates in your spirit, write it down. It's really a great opportunity for you, especially if it resonates. That I always say, that spirit letting me know there's some work there. And remember to allow yourself grace. Nobody's perfect. Nobody gets this thing down all at one time. And remember that if you were never taught, this is an opportunity for you to begin to learn. But if you were never taught, don't beat yourself up. Allow yourself some grace. All right. And then sit with your truth during self-reflection, right? It may not be here today. It may come up when you're driving in the car. It may come up before you go to bed. It may come up when you're working out. But just know that self-reflection is a big, big part of being self-aware and using your emotional intelligence. I get this question often, is the slide deck available? And no, the slide deck is not available. If you and your teams are interested in receiving a training, you are free to go to my website at preventionwithintention.com and book a free consultation. We can have a conversation about what your needs are and what you like to see for your teams. And I would be happy to do that. Is in-person virtual trainings or workshops available to my organization? Yes. Please go to the website and book a free consultation to find out more. Is there a cost? Yes, there is a cost. There's a lot of work and passion that goes into planning any session, whether it's 3 people or 25 people or 100 people. And so I pride myself on giving you the best opportunity to learn information, and it takes a lot of work. So there is a cost, and the rates do vary by group size and time. That is something we can discuss in a free consultation. Are there any questions before we get into the workshop objectives? If there are, please put them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself.
It's none in the chat so far.
All right. So we'll move through these slides. We may move through them pretty quickly, depending on the time. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the clock. But today we're going to define what emotional intelligence means. We're going to identify a few components of emotional intelligence, identify some tools to gain control of your emotions, and determine effective ways to be verbal and use your nonverbal and verbal communication. And then determine ways to make a great impression on other people. One thing I will say is that I messed up a lot early on. I've been working in the behavioral health field now for 11 or 12 years, because I'll be 15 this month. And I will tell you that it takes time, but the biggest thing that I learned to do was to ask myself why. In that quiet self-reflection. So if you don't do any self-reflection, you might not ever get to the answer. And so we're going to talk about those things today. All right, we have a couple of poll questions on the screen. Dwayne?
Yes, you want me to launch
Okay.
the first one?
Yes, please.
Okay.
What is emotional intelligence? I just want to see where you guys are. Mm-hmm. All right, all right. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
I'll go ahead and end it and share the results. About 18% say A, but majority of people say D. And then we got a couple people that say being aware of the emotions that drive specific behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And so we are all correct in this in regards to this, because it's all of the above. Emotional intelligence is really about recognizing, understanding, and managing our own emotions, right? First of all, recognizing it means asking that question. Understanding it is to define what it is that you're experiencing and be able to understand that on a more deeper level. To be able to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others, and being aware of emotions that drive your behaviors. And we'll talk more about this as we move through the slides. But just know that, when you can sit and recognize, understand, and manage your emotions, then you have some level of emotional intelligence. Do we do this well all the time? Absolutely not. But if you can at least acknowledge that that you can be aware of what emotions drive behavior, then it really will help you be more emotionally intelligent. Next poll question.
Okay.
All right. Which of the following is a sign of low emotional intelligence? Oh yeah, y'all know this stuff. Okay, yes. A low sign of low emotional intelligence is being quick to form judgments. It's just that simple.
96%.
Yep. And if you don't know this, it's okay, right? Now you know. Which of the following is a sign of low emotional intelligence? Being quick to form judgments. There's no pause in there. You just go straight to judging. All right, so let's get started. Emotional intelligence, again, like we talked about before, is the ability to recognize, right? And manage our emotions, behaviors, and impulses, right? And that's a lot. Like, you got to think about that. You have to manage your emotions, how you behave, and those impulses, as well as apply this knowledge to the world around you. Emotional intelligence does encourage you to have more self-awareness, internal motivation, and explore diverse populations perspective. So at the end of the day, if you can begin to recognize what's coming up, like I know when I get angry, I feel it in my gut first. When I recognize that gut thing that I'm feeling, now I have an opportunity to manage to manage my emotions. And then that in turn helps me have better behavior. All right. So now that we know that emotions play a big role in our lives, they do help to guide decisions for the world around us. And it influences our interactions, how we deal with people. If I can take the opportunity to be more self-aware, then I have an opportunity to have better interactions with others. So we've defined emotional intelligence. We understand what it means to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions. And also just knowing that your emotional intelligence also affects other people around you. We talked about some of the signs of low emotional intelligence, and this is a big one, having a victim mentality. Right? Like we come into recovery and we begin to acknowledge what has happened to us. But sometimes we can stay stuck in that victim mentality. This happened to me. This happened to me. While these things are valid, if you stay in that victim mentality throughout your recovery, then you have low emotional intelligence. So at some point, I'd like to think that as we navigate recovery, if you're new to this whole field of recovery, if you're new to recovery in general, shifting your perspective around being a victim is a big chunk of how you begin to build really good emotional intelligence. Um, Being unaccepting of feedback. This is, we don't realize that we're unaccepting of feedback, but when someone offers us feedback, and we don't necessarily receive it because we go straight into blaming or looking at the other person instead of taking that information and being quiet and still with that new information. A lot of times being unaccepting of feedback will cause you to have low emotional intelligence. And oftentimes we don't necessarily get a lot of feedback because people are turned off by how we respond to things. So you may not always receive feedback. So when someone is brave enough to give you some good feedback about yourself, I would respectfully challenge you to take some time to understand what is going on there. Dwelling on mistakes. This is a big one for me. I know how to ruminate over a mistake. I know how to sit in the mistake and blame myself over and over, and I am still working on that. Is there anyone who would like to unmute themselves and just talk about what it's like to be unaccepting of feedback and how it affects you?
It'll definitely stunt your growth because feedback is a blessing.
Right.
So I mean, there's been times in my life where obviously in active addiction, I'm not trying to hear anything from anybody.
Mhm.
And then, once you move past those things, listening to feedback and then making a determination after you have received it, whether or not you want to do something with it, tends to be a best practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It might have been me.
So
What?
somebody needs to mute themselves.
I muted them.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's super important. It's like when you first get a job and you start working in the behavioral health field, and you have that first meeting with your manager and they're offering you feedback, and the first thing you do is start thinking about, well, why you did it the way you did it, instead of just saying, I received that, let me take some time to sit with that. That's a really good way to learn how to be accepting of feedback. But it's not always easy. And if you haven't had a practice of doing this, yeah, it's going to feel really uncomfortable and weird. I saw someone else who raised their hand.
I think Latasha.
Go ahead, Latasha.
Hi, I apologize. It was a mistake. I apologize.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Anyone else like to talk about signs of low emotional intelligence and be vulnerable here?
Yes, I would. I
Sure.
remember hi, I'm Audrey. I
Mhm.
remember in my first job when the supervisor was giving me feedback. Now I'm brand new. I had gone through training and now I'm getting the feedback. And as she was telling me that, first of all, I was embarrassed. I was, I thought that I knew And I just felt so low. I could feel the embarrassment, like that feeling that you get in the back of your neck. And then the
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment turned into slight anger and
Mm-hmm.
then resentment towards her. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm young, so I was in my 20s, and I felt some of this throughout my life. But I'll never forget how embarrassed that I get when I'm getting some feedback because I'm thinking automatically I should have known that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
Mm-hmm.
know everything.
You can't know everything. And here's the thing, like when we're young, we don't have a lot of life experience, but this is one of the things that I'm always like thinking about. It's like I've never done a thing before. Never. And then I go to do that thing and I don't do it well. And I have this expectation that I should just do it well. And when I don't, I'm dwelling on that, right? But how about the fact that I've never done it before? Right? And so that I had to shift my thinking about, okay, I've never done this before, so I shouldn't have this expectation that I'm going to do it great and right and all the way through the first time. That is just pressure. That is stress that I'm putting on myself in a space where I'm still learning something new. That makes sense. April, I see your hand up. Dottie, you're next.
Yeah, so before I became a CARES, I was a supervisor and I had to start giving reviews and performance evaluations myself. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I actually dug down deep and found out how to do it. So it would tell you to start out with their strengths. So when you wanted to talk to them about things they needed correcting, you would first start with their strengths. You know, you have strengths here and here and here, and I admire you for it. But there are some things that we need to work on. So you would kind of build them up first before you would let them know, and so they would be more receptive to the feedback, you know,
Yes.
because you kind of boasted them a little bit and showed them where they are strong. This
Mhm.
is not something to condemn you, but these are some of the areas we want to work on, you know, let's work on a plan to get it together. So it really helped out a lot that I had to dig down because I didn't want to go out there and tell them you're messing up here, you're messing up there. So I'm like, how do I do this as a supervisor in this role? So I
Mhm.
don't get everybody mad at me because if you can't get your workers to work in a loving way, then they're going to resent you for it. So it was a very good learning curve for me.
Good, good. Thank you for sharing that. Here's the thing, about receiving feedback is that essentially it's there to help you improve. It's not there to tear you down. Are
Exactly.
there people in the world who are there to tear you down? Possibly, right? But more than likely in a work environment, they want you to do well because they want you to be there. They hired you. They spent a lot of money and invested a lot of time to get you hired. So they do want you to do well. And so when you get that feedback, it really is an opportunity. And I always say, take that pause and say thank you for that feedback, get that piece of paper and go spend some time by yourself with it. Don't go calling your friends, oh, they talked about me and they said this and they said that, right? Because that's just going to add fuel to you being in the victim mentality, if that makes sense, right? So the shift can be, what can I do differently, right? And a lot of times it has something to do with a behavior that you need to change that causes you to be in the position, right? Dottie, you're next.
Think I've graduated from the victim mentality.
Talk about it.
Um, and with the feedback, I usually tell people that if you don't tell me, I can't fix it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't change it or fix it if you don't tell me what's going on. I'm sure there are times with certain people that I don't appreciate their feedback, but the one that I have problems with is dwelling on mistakes, playing it over and over in my head. So I'm wondering if, with looking at these, signs of low emotional intelligence, is it also low self-esteem?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember I had a coworker who, sweet as pie, had nothing but love, right, for me. And we were both starting this new role and we started it together. And I like to coin this phrase by Brene Brown called hustling for your worth, right? It's the pick-me's, it's the, I need you to see me, I need you to know that I'm good at this, I'm going to show you, right? And as a result of that, I was very, very activated by that. And I didn't understand why until I began to ask myself the question of why. Why is it that we're running into each other? Why is it that I feel the way I feel as a result of what we were doing? And here it is, Dottie. I was insecure. That's it. I was insecure. And I did not get to that by calling my friends and telling them about it. I got to it by being by myself, by taking a walk and asking myself the question, why do you feel this way? And so that was the beginning of me shifting in my emotional intelligence in such a way that I was able to come back into the space and understand that this person was not malicious. They had no ill intention toward me. Now, are there people in your jobs that may have ill? Yes, it is. But in this case, I will say she did not have that at all. She loved me with her whole heart, right? And she was also doing her own version of hustling for her worth. And while she may not have had the kinds of insecurities that I thought she had, I had my own. And my responsibility was to recognize my own emotions, my own behaviors, my own thoughts. And that is kind of like the beginning of a shift for me. And so, yeah, those signs of low emotional intelligence is you did this to me, being able to unaccept feedback and just staying stuck on mistakes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's talk about it. What are emotions? Emotions are natural reactions. They are natural reactions that we experience. And it could be because of a situation, it because of the mood that I'm in, or a connection that I have, right? And so if I understand that it's a natural reaction, then as a human being, I know that there's a way that I can respond to it in a different way. And that it's not my fault that they're happening that way. It's just natural. And we all have these natural reactions in our emotions. Depending on what my mood is or what the situation is. When it comes to my kids, you might be able to catch me, you know, in a not so emotionally intelligent way. And I've had to learn how to pause. I remember when I got my kids back, they were really little and they didn't have a lot of experience outside playing with kids because where they came from, they were very sheltered and they didn't have play relationships out in the neighborhood. And my daughter, both my daughters, they're twins, they're 21 now, but they were really like, I think maybe 5th grade is when I got them back. So they were very early in me, you know, getting custody of them back. And they got into fights in the neighborhood. And as soon as they came into the house to tell me somebody did something to them, I didn't think or ask them, what did you say? Or what caused this situation? Tell me the story, right? I just went straight in. I'm gonna go get them kids and their mama. I did that a lot, to the point where my kids stopped telling me things because they knew I was gonna take it to a place that it didn't need to go, right? And I didn't think about my kids' emotions. I didn't think about anybody's emotions. I was ready to go get the mama and the kids, right? And so what I've learned is that while I may have a natural reaction as a mom to want to protect my kids, I have a responsibility to myself to pause, ask questions, assess the situation, right? Because that mommy thing is never going away. I'm always going to be that protector. We're designed that way. All right. Emotional quotient versus intellectual potential, right? So the emotional and quotient involves social skills, how you resolve conflict, your ability to lead, and how you have emotional and control, right? But our IQ is our intellectual potential, right? And there are lots of tests that can help you understand what your intellectual potential is, but your emotional quotient involves your social skills. And, you know, at certain times in our lives, we're not as social. We don't really have great conflict resolution. You know, I was very, 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 very afraid to speak my truth. I didn't have leadership abilities. I have natural leadership abilities, but they were very, very suppressed. And emotional control is something that we have to learn a little bit at a time, right? And that just means recognizing, you know, oh, I'm feeling angry right now. Oh, I want to cry right now. Oh, I want to say something that's probably not very kind right now. How can I control that? So the components of emotional intelligence, and there are 5. We're not going to go through all of them. This is a very big slide presentation that I've compressed down to just a few slides, but there are 5 components, and they help individuals navigate complex emotional situations. I've gotten to the point now that I can pause. Pause is a big thing for me, right? It's huge. And breathing. Like just pausing and taking a deep breath. Do you know how much can happen in that little bit of time that you take to just do that? And that also indicates to the other person that you are currently maybe challenged or trying to find the best way to handle that situation so that you don't have conflict. Because if you let your emotional situations get out of control, there's a likelihood that you're going to have some conflict. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any thoughts about this they'd like to share?
There was a question from Tawana Jefferson, and she said, what role do you think a person's attachment base plays on low emotional intelligence and reactions?
Attachment. I think it really depends on the relationship and how it was built, how it started, and how you're being treated. I think, read that first part again.
It says, what role do you think a person's attachment base plays on low emotional intelligence and reactions? And Tawana, if you want to, this is a time for you to ask the question if you would like to unmute.
Hi, TaTa-Nisha, it's TJ.
Hi.
So, yeah, so I just wanted to know what your opinion was about what role, the attachment base plays. Like, for example, let's say you are anxious avoidance, or, or just break it down. You grew up in maybe a verbally abusive environment, or a physically abusive, or a non-present parent or caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
um, or an overly involved
Mm-hmm.
caregiver or parent. What role does that attachment base or that foundation play in your low emotional intelligence?
I think it's a big, big part of why we have it, right? Because you think about it, if you haven't been taught, if the people who nurtured you or attempted to nurture you or taught you things did not know how to do that, then they're not going to know. You're not going to know how to do it. And so you're attached to that part of yourself that is connected to that low emotional intelligence. One, because there's probably people in your life who also have low emotional intelligence. So attachment, learning how to detach from that takes a lot of work, right? Because if you have, I always tell the story about my kids and the word respect, right? And I talk about this in a lot of the trainings that I do, is that, I thought respect meant doing what I say. When my grandma told me to do something and I didn't do it, that means I was disrespecting her. That's how I know that's what I know what that to mean, right? And so when I looked up what respect means, it means to hold someone in high regard. And how can you hold someone in high regard who calls you names and tells you that you're beautiful, that you're not beautiful, and that you're ugly, or that you're stupid, or that you're dumb, right? And so my grandmother didn't know. She was just using the language that probably was passed on to her, right? And so I had to learn how to earn my children's respect, right? And a lot of times we don't think that our kids should earn respect from us, right? Because we do everything for them. But my kids didn't hold me in high regard. I had to earn that, and it took a really long time. Let's just be honest. And sometimes they're a whole lot better than they used to be, but they were also little kids who were being parented by someone who really did not have any emotional intelligence. So yeah, attachments are huge. Yes. And how you break away from that is the work. Winona, I see your hand.
You're muted, Winona.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a TaTa-Nisha,
Yes.
Nisha. I love that name.
Thank you.
So, hypothetically, but no, really, it's my life. And I'm not embarrassed to say this, that what if you have a person you're in a love relationship and one of them has, high, not high, but has, emotional intelligence, me, because I have worked on it tremendously, especially during this last 10 years of my recovery. And the other person has a low emotional intelligence, and their response when you were trying to talk about something is to shut down completely. Let some time pass, nothing is resolved, and he expects me just to carry on like nothing ever happened. But my emotional needs have not been met. Um, Basically, is there any hope for a relationship like that?
I cannot answer that because I feel like there's always some level of hope. I always
Yes.
say be the change you want to see, but I've also determined that sometimes people are just not going to change, right?
Okay.
And there has to
Yeah.
be some level of self-love and self-care that you provide for yourself to be able to move through that. But that's a hard one. Yeah, you're going to always be around people who just have low emotional intelligence. And it's hard when you are involved with someone on a very personal and intimate level. That is very difficult. But I can't answer that because I just don't know if
Yes.
I'll be right. You know what I mean? Because, I always like to have hope that people will change.
Well,
by
same
being-
here. Same
Yeah,
here. I
yeah.
guess that's why we keep us who love big, keep giving them another chance and another chance,
Yes, absolutely.
hoping that something's going to change.
Right.
But thank you. I know that was very personal, but thank you for answering that for me.
Okay, sure. All right. I see Dottie, you have your hand up.
Yes. I just wanted to say for me, sometimes it's teaching others how to treat me. Um, that I refuse to be treated that way. And I don't have to be mean about it. I don't have to be forceful about it, but I can say no and I can protect myself. And I've had to learn over the years how to protect myself. And part of that is teaching others how I will allow to be treated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dottie. Is there anyone else who'd like to chime in on this? Okay. All right, let's talk about self-management, right? It's the ability to accept accountability, stick to your goals and values, always be learning, and care for your mind and your body. And I'm a big proponent of self-care. A big reason why I am able to manage my emotions a little bit better is because I take care of my mind and body. I do mindfulness techniques. I do deep breathing. I take long walks. I talk to people who are going to fill me up with good and positive energy. Do I have a friend that I kiki and caca with? Yes. Right. But at the end of the day, what my best friend gonna do is tell me the truth. And that's a real friend, right? And accepting accountability starts with that quiet, still moment when you're being charged with something or some new information is being revealed about you through your work, through your friends, through your family, is if you know you're wrong, accept accountability for it. And if you don't have the ability to accept accountability, it's going to be really hard. And what happens is you begin to develop a reputation, right? She's not gonna accept responsibility for that, right? And then that means people really don't want to deal with you, right? Sticking to your goals and values. It wasn't until I came into recovery that I didn't realize that I had no values. I didn't have any values. And so I had to learn. So if you're new to this information, just go look up values, right? And spend some time with the list. There's a big list of values that you can identify with, and they'll resonate with you. And you'll be like, okay, I value that. Oh yeah, I do value that. Oh yeah, yeah. And then take those words and spend time with them. Read them, study them, understand them, and develop your own list of values. Continued learning is super important, because what I will say is our phones have, if you look at our kids now, I mean, it's a level of brain rot that scares me, right? But we as adults, because their minds are developing and growing, and we're already who we're going to be, right? But if you don't take the time to learn new things, it's really hard to manage who you are as a person, right? And so this self-management is just finding ways to stick to your goals, to know your values, to always be learning new information. I know for me right now, if I read a book, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go to sleep. So when I can't sleep, I pick up a book. And so now what I do is I get audiobooks. But audiobooks help me learn new information. When I started this self-care journey, when I started this journey of teaching self-leadership, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, because these were things I was struggling with. And I went to do the research to find out, well, what's the best way to, how are other people doing it? TED Talks. There are a lot of ways if you find yourself going to sleep like I do, as an elder now. I'm an elder now, which is quite funny. My kids remind me of that every chance they get. Is there anyone here who could talk about how they manage themselves and which one of these resonates with you the most?
I think that it's seasonal,
You think
right?
it's seasonal?
So for me specifically, there are certain times where like I have to stick to goals, certain values, certain things, stuff like that. And then there's certain times where I got to take a step back and care more for myself because I've been entrenched in certain seasons for too long. I think that like the continuous learning, I think that that's everybody's, or at least for me, that's something I always want to do, but it's not always something I have time to do. So when I sit down with myself quarterly, it's okay, like what are my priorities this quarter? I need to make sure that I make appointments with those priorities first. And then once I get past that, everything else can kind of be filled in by the world. But for me, it's having an understanding of what season of life I'm in, what is going to like what the priorities are, because if you don't have strict priorities, or if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So I have never much so like since I'm an entrepreneur and everything believed much in balance. So I'm just like, okay, which one of these can I focus on right now without letting them all completely go, if that makes sense.
Yes, very good, very good. Yeah, things happen in seasons. They do. And it kind of depends on you whether or not you want to address those in the season. Sometimes we just kind of walk away from them and I'll deal with that later, or that's not a super big priority for me right now. And then it pops up somewhere else in your life. Right. And so just acknowledging, okay, this is the season. Like I'm shifting my closet right now. This is the season for me to shift my closet and pull things from under my bed and hit the baseboards and pull out the refrigerator. Every season I try to do something to shift my house, right? To shift the energy in my house. And it calls for a better living situation. Come on, Karen, what you got?
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is awesome so far.
Thank you.
So in regards to care for the mind and body, I feel like, if your mind is right, then everything else is going to fall into place. So
Mhm.
I consistently, over and over, daily, in the moment, tap into positivity.
Mhm.
Reading something, talking to someone positive, positive all the time. I do periodically challenges, like I'm currently on a challenge this month to not eat any sugar, no bread, and nothing fried. Uh, Extremely difficult. Sugar is in everything.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like things like that have helped me maintain, surviving cancer
Mhm.
without ever getting sick, because consistently positivity, positivity, positivity. It really works.
It really
Thank
does
you.
work. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Patricia, real quick.
1 second. Um, I'm sorry. Oh Lord, I lost 1 second.
We're here. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, what happened? Okay, when you were talking about value, when I was in my addiction, um, I had to learn my values all over again.
Mhm.
Um, because my value at that time to me was like everything to do for my addiction. But since I been clean, I my value has my values are what a society expect of me,
Mhm.
what my spiritual life that I live, and they're real important to me now because I know whatever I send out or produce, it will affect other people.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's why, and to and it took me and it took me time to understand a lot of things in life because my addiction didn't start with me using. As you said before, my addiction started in other manner as a child, not feeling good about myself, not thinking that
Mhm.
I was beautiful, thinking that my nose was the wrong shape and my mouth was the wrong shape and my color was the wrong color. So
Mhm.
I grew up not feeling good about myself and feeling that way in other life things that happen. It really affect my, like someone said before, my self-esteem, and my self-esteem affect me being accountable for what I need to do. But in my
Mm.
but in my today life, in my today life, I work hard because I know that by me working hard to be accountable in the other 3 steps,
Mhm.
that my life has been better, so much better. I am grateful.
Mhm.
So the 4 steps that we're talking about,
Mhm.
I think I appreciate you and this workshop because
Mhm.
it really helps me understand what I've been through, what I'm going through, and what my life can be much better. Because in life, sometimes things need to be reiterated,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yep.
So, and I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is the point of these webinars, is sometimes to
Yeah,
just bring it back into our
bring it back
awareness,
to that.
because we do forget. We do forget, and we kind of get into life and we keep moving. I'm going to move through these slides pretty quickly, y'all. So I'll take some more questions in a couple more slides. Okay. All right. So self-awareness. One of the things that I've learned is not to make decisions at the peak of an emotional situation. Right. I remember I used to call family meetings with my kids because they made me mad. And then I would set all these rules, these new rules of the household now, because I'm
Yep,
so angry. Right. And a
yep,
lot of times the consequences were way bigger than what they needed to be. But it was because I was emotionally displaced. And so, if you make a decision while you're in the middle of something really emotional, it's probably not going to be the best decision for you. Right. So that's where pause comes in. Pause can mean in the moment, and pause could be, give me a little bit of time to think about that. Right now, I am feeling something and I don't know why. But I want to sit with that for a little bit. So can I get back with you? That is okay to do, right? Even in a work situation. How we build, having self-awareness is how you build a growth mindset, and being able to identify your triggers. Being able to identify your triggers. What are your social skills? Being able to pay attention to both verbal and nonverbal communication. A lot of times when we're telling our stories, we don't realize that we're not paying attention to the room, right? We're just in our own little heads and we're talking, and we don't really look at what's happening in the room. You can tell by somebody's facial features, how they're shifting in their seat, how they have their hands, if they're looking away, can tell you a lot about your social skills and being able to pay attention to that. Being able to ask open-ended questions. And I didn't know how to do that when I first got here. And I still struggle with it sometimes because I want to get to an answer. And a lot of times I think if I just drill down on this one specific thing, that they should be able to answer that question really firmly. And that does not always happen. Develop a positive outlook on others. If you can see the positivity in yourself, then try to see it in other people. Everyone has good qualities. Everyone. Not everyone is awful, and you know what I mean? There's always a good quality in there. I try to see the best in everybody, even when I see the worst in them in the moment, because they're not that way all the time. And that's just my own personal opinion. Some of our internal motivations, right? To be able to celebrate personal results. Being able to focus on small, achievable goals. That is how I get a lot of stuff done. Is to not look at the big picture all the time and just find ways to itemize that thing and make them achievable for myself. And again, we're back to this word again about being accountable. That internal motivation allows me to have better working relationships, right? If I have a big task that I'm tasked with in my job, if I take the time to just bite-size that thing, I have better outcomes. Because sometimes I can get lost in the weeds because I see the whole big picture and I want to drill down on everything really quickly, right? And the way I celebrate my posting results, it could be that I just got an email out on time. It could be that I made sure that there was something in the building that, that wasn't there before, right? That's a personal result. I set that goal for myself and I'm going to celebrate that. I got it here. I made it. I did it. I can. Yes. So find out what your internal motivations are. Create those internal motivations for yourself. Let's talk about some tools to gain control. Who has a hard time controlling their emotional reactions? Winona?
I do. I know that for sure.
Okay. Winona?
Yeah, I was just raising my hand in response to that question.
Okay.
That's me.
Got it.
I would say that my facials, my nonverbals kind of give how I feel away. I'm still working on that, but it will typically give away how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anyone else?
I second what Miss Jamie said.
Okay. I remember early in 12-step process, there was an elder in the room who used to say, sit on your hands.
Yeah,
Sit
I
on your
remember.
hands. And it used to get on my nerves, but really what she was saying was your body language is doing a lot right now and it's disruptive to the room, right? That was feedback that I had to accept because I did not want to drink again, right? But yeah, being able to control your emotional reactions is work. And what I learned is that pausing is a big way. I'll say that over and over again. Mindfulness and meditation is a great way. If I'm mindful that right now what this person said to me is making me angry, and if I take a few moments to just take a couple of deep breaths and acknowledge that, then I have an opportunity there to help myself be emotionally intelligent, right? Right now, I feel something. I might not know what it is in that moment all the time. While anger may be the first thing I can identify with, there are other emotions that pop up, right? Mindfulness and meditation helps to dissolve emotional baggage. It does help with depression and anxiety. Because if I take some deep breaths, I'm reducing my anxiety. I can guarantee you that. Right? So just know that, being mindful and taking opportunities to meditate, and I don't mean long kumbaya meditation, right? It can be 5 minutes. It could be, I'm going to take 15 minutes to sit right here in front of my computer in my office, and I'm going to do some deep breathing. You could do that. You have the power to do that. Identifying emotional triggers. This is a big one.
Big one, yeah.
A big one. I didn't realize that there was a person that I worked with who, I'm trying to move this. Okay. That was, every time he walked by me, he smelled like someone that had did harm to me. And it affected the rest of my workday. It changed my energy, and my coworkers would be like, what's going on? It took me a minute to realize that cologne was triggering me. And why I always kept the distance from him. I didn't really take the time to really assess that. I just knew that it smelled bad to me. But I didn't quite identify that it was something that I had identified with as a child, right? Without saying too much, right? And that is having the ability to identify your emotional triggers starts with being quiet. It really does. It comes with assessing, like right now, this person is talking too much, which was a big thing for me. People who don't stay on topic because they are so caught up in saying what they want to say is a trigger for me. But I also was doing that same thing at some point, right? So that means that I wasn't socially aware and that I was triggering other people as well, right? Because I had that pick me thing on me bad when I got here, right? Understanding that smell of that cologne made me very uncomfortable, and the rest of my day would be messed up as a result of it, right? Can anyone tell us about an emotional trigger that they have and how they found out that it was an emotional trigger? Don't have to tell the story of how, just the emotional trigger. Someone who hasn't spoken.
For me, it would be music.
Okay.
I am very emotionally moved by music and what it's saying, and it can take me to a whole nother place in life. And, to memories, to just different times in my life when I have listened to different types of music.
Yes. Anyone else?
I will say that a Shell gas station is a trigger for me. I ended up having to do therapy for it from an incident that happened there.
Yeah, there are certain gas stations I just don't go to anymore. I can identify with that. All right.
What about self-centeredness?
Oh, yeah.
I was about to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's talk about that.
I had a situation just Tuesday where I'm trying to take care of my well-being. I had a gym class, and the class that I go to, you book it or they charge you if you don't show up or you cancel within so many hours. And there was somebody needed a ride home from work, and we had discussed this earlier, so there was a little bit of lack of communication also. But anyway, so we waited until it got almost too late. And so I was told that I was in need to go and pick this person up. And so there I am. So I've gotten into myself. Well, now I've got to cancel my class. They're going to charge me $12. And it just got me to where when I did get in the car, and that's when I take my time to meditate. I got in the car and I'm like, okay, so I've got this feeling. What is this going on? And usually when I'm speaking to the universe, I can't lie. The universe knows everything. So It's like, okay, so why are you feeling this way? You're angry, you're frustrated, and now you're feeling a little bit of the victim because something has happened to you. And then, so I had to think too, before I got there to pick this person up, I've got to control this because this is not this person's fault. And so I've got to calm myself down, reel it in. And then I'm like, okay, so this is the self-centeredness part. So you're going to be okay. It's all right. We've got tomorrow. You're going to be okay. So the self-centeredness can definitely be a trigger to my emotions. And that's, being in recovery, I try not to be on self so much, but I'm not perfect. So it still can be a trigger for me sometimes.
Understood. At least you know that, right? Part of acknowledging our triggers is now an opportunity to work on those things, right? And you may not always get it perfectly the first time, but if you keep trying, you'll get better at it. I've gotten better with pausing, right? Because I like to tell you about yourself. I do. But what I've learned is that pause, I realize that sometimes I'm making a mistake by just rushing to judgment about something that I think I need to tell somebody. And my kids taught me that. They taught me that real good. I forgot to put a couple of poll questions up. Can you just go in the order, Dwayne?
Yes. So here's the next one.
All right. What is self-awareness? Okay, y'all know some stuff. Okay. The ability to understand. Mm-hmm.
And I'll share those results. Mostly everybody said the ability to understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
So
then,
sometimes it's an opportunity to learn a different perspective. And in learning a different perspective, you began to learn how to relate to others. Simply put, self-awareness is recognizing those traits of the self, including your emotions, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your patterns, right? If you just start looking at your patterns, you're going to get some answers because you do it over and over again. Yeah. Look at your patterns. Ask people who know you that you hold in high regard, right? Because holding someone in high regard means that you respect them enough to listen to what they say and to take that feedback and do something with it, right? So can we go to the next question?
yes.
Emotional intelligence requires what? Yep, that's right. Control. Who has the ability to control you? Yeah, you.
Yeah.
I used to say that. He made me mad. No, he didn't. He said something that triggered me and I responded or reacted. Right? I've learned not to give people the power to control my emotions. And that takes a lot of work. This is not stuff that you just hear about it and then you just start doing it. Right? Right now, it's just about bringing it into your awareness. That's what this webinar is. It's really to bring it into your awareness again, and it'll fall off. You'll forget again. Right? And so this, information like this, just being able to go and look up what emotional intelligence is a great way to start that reflection. All right. So, one of the ways that I have been able to help me with my emotions is how I breathe. And I remember when my kids used to make me so angry, I had taken, I don't know if it was rap, wham, I don't know what class I had been in, but we learned some different breathing techniques. And I realized that whenever I did like, that would cause my kids to stop fighting, blaming each other, being angry with me, to check in with what's going on with me, which was an opportunity. Now, did I know what I was doing at the time? No, I did not, but it worked. And so I started doing that. And I said, so if you see mommy doing this, mommy is right now is very angry or very hurt or very confused or trying to figure something out. And so breathing helps me do that. When I am in a challenging situation in work or in the public, I do a lot of work in the community. And so when I'm having some challenges, that pursed lip breathing is an indicator to let me know I'm being challenged. Because you feel the breath on your lips, right? That shifts something for you. Right? Belly breathing is super important because it allows you an opportunity to relax some of that anxiety. Breathing is really about reducing anxiety in the moment. And if you practice it on a regular basis, it becomes a natural way to handle stress, if that makes sense. Taking a break. One of the things I had to learn how to do was walk away from some things. You know, right now, I don't know. Let me take a walk. And it's an opportunity to think about what you're feeling, to identify with that figure, that feeling, that thing that is activating a certain emotion, because we know how to go to the natural emotions without thinking about it. Does that make sense? Like, we just automatically feel, we automatically have emotions. Every human being does. So being able to take a break and walk away has been one of the things that helped me to get to that quiet time that I needed to reflect, that honest self-reflection. And it's not always pretty. I don't like sometimes how I feel or why I feel the way I feel. Is there anyone who'd like to identify with identifying emotional triggers?
I would.
Please.
This is Dottie. Can
Go
I?
ahead. Mm-hmm.
I've got one that's just really, I don't like to talk politics. I'll talk politics with my family, but I don't believe it's the workplace is a place to bring your differences in politics and even religion sometimes. And I can get so frustrated and so angry. It may take me a couple of days to get over it. And I really resent that. And I don't know how to relax myself and let it go, you know, and not carry it, you know, for days at a time. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Do you have any suggestions?
Absolutely not. I'm going to be honest with you. It takes that individual reflection, because I feel like ruminating is a big chunk of why that happens. We get stuck in a loop and we don't find ways to break out of that, right? A lot of times that could be learning new information, but what I will say is that that is a hard one, right? And it does take a lot of self-reflection to get to the core of that. And sometimes just being quiet and still and asking why do I feel this way, is a big start for that. And then being honest with yourself about why, right? And that's what I'll say about that. It's different for everyone. We all find ways to tap into why we get stuck in places. But I always go back to honest self-reflection as a way, and then having someone that you hold in high regard who may have a different perspective from you, but you listen to them, at least on a small level, right? But you know, I think a lot of times we just have to break certain cycles and certain ways of thinking. And that is not always easy to do when we always are connected to people who are just like us, right? Sometimes we have to step outside of who we are and the places that we are that are like us to get a different perspective. And I think that's the best way I've been able to do it is like if I don't agree with something, is to talk to people who don't think like me and to try to be reasonable in that regard. And then spend time with myself and the truth of who I am. Right? April?
Yeah, so in February this year, I had to have a heart stent put in, and it made me look at how I react to life in general.
Mm-hmm.
What I was putting in my body, mentally, emotionally, food. But also a big trigger for me is other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
like when we're
so
going
true.
down the road with my husband, he
Mhm.
has a slight touch of road rage. If he goes to a red light, right when it turns green, he's blowing his horn at the person in front. And I'm like, dude, you gotta stop that, give him a chance to see the green light. But I used to just bicker with him and don't do that because somebody's gonna shoot you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I've learned, baby, just look at me. Let's just enjoy the car ride. We're not in no hurry to get anywhere, and I've learned to kind of just coach him through it instead of telling him what he should and shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had to find myself this year. I had a meltdown when I had that heart stamp put in because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, this came out of nowhere. I knew something was off, but I had to learn to do box breathing and walk around the block. And, my mother's a big trigger for me because in my addiction, she was one of my biggest triggers. And I just carried that over. So I'm like, I love my mother. Why do I feel this way? And she lives down here a lot with me, so she'll come stay a month with me. And by that month of that, so I had to learn, how do I figure this out? What is causing this? What is the inner root problem of it? I had to ask myself these questions, and I had to forgive her inside
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, Mom, I forgive you for this, because she was going through it too. But I
Mm-hmm.
forgave her in my heart for not being there for me when I needed her the most and
Well,
not
that's good.
understanding. But she had her own battle too. But
Yep.
yeah, I've been on a self journey, and my
Mhm.
daughter's the same way. Anxiety problems out the wazoo, and I'm like, quit watching social media. What are you putting in? You need to be watching inspirational stuff. You need to breathe. People
Yeah.
think breathing is so mundane, but we forget to breathe. We're so tense and
Oh
tight.
yeah, we do. I have
Breathing
realized
is
that I forget.
amazing, and I've
Yes.
learned that big time
Ab-
this year. But yeah,
absolutely.
I've been
We
on a big
forget to breathe.
spiritual journey about how to relax and get this off my shoulders and my neck, so
Very good. Thank you,
it's
April. Come on,
working. Yeah.
Michael, and then Audrey. Real quick.
Well, I was just going to kind of speak to Dottie's point earlier. There's something similar. It's not necessarily politics, it's background. So there's a person in my life that has a different background than me, but the only reason that person's in my life is because they're in the life of the person that I care about, kind of thing. So one of the things that I definitely have to do is when I'm hanging around the person that I want to be around, is I kind of have to, if I'm starting to get upset with that person, and it's not anything they can control. They come from a very kind of spoiled background. I come from I had to work myself up background. So it's not something they can control. It's just something that I have to control myself, even though I know that it's a trigger for me when there's that kind of situation. So I kind of have to let the person I know that I care about be like, look, I know this is someone you love. I know this is someone that you care for. I can't be in the room with them right now. I need to walk away. And luckily I'm friends with people that person is very emotionally intelligent, so they understand it. So that's just something that I have to do, is be like, I can't be in the room with this person right now. I don't hate the person. It's just I cannot be in that room right now because it's driving me nuts, triggering things for me.
Right. Thank you, Michael. That's a sign of high emotional intelligence. Audrey.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Dottie was talking about politics. My husband, he's deceased now. He just passed in December. He was a big proponent of politics. All day long, he would cuss and yell, and it caused such anxiety in me and fear that I had to stop listening to him. You know, I have a girlfriend who eats it day in and day out, and she would call, and all of a sudden I can feel my whole body shift. I didn't want the fear, and I believe I had to call on the God of my understanding to get through those moments because I was so afraid, you know. So I had to stop listening to my husband, and I told him that, I turned the television off, you
Mhm.
can't because it's too much. And
Yes.
that's how I cope with it. I go directly to the source. That gives me a
Absolutely.
better understanding.
Looks like you got some good information, Dottie. Thank you, Audrey. All right, let's, Tim, I'll come back to you, dear. We're going to move through these slides here. We all have learned a little bit about active listening, right? To practice that in our work is one of the ways to be more emotionally intelligent, to try not to interrupt someone when they are speaking, right? The second that you are forming your thoughts about what you're going to say before they've completed what they're saying, is you're not actively listening. And we do this as human beings. It is a natural thing that we do. We have been conditioned that way. Being able to paraphrase when someone is speaking is a great way to find out if there's real understanding. Because then someone can give you feedback and say, no, that's not exactly what I said, or that's not exactly what I meant. We are good at hearing what someone says and paraphrasing it in our minds and then going on to a rumination process and not sitting with that information, right? When the speaker is done, being able to provide feedback and ask questions is a great way to be an active listener. And we say this a lot in the behavioral health field. So what I heard you say is, right, that's a real good way to be actively listening. And if you didn't get it, it's an opportunity for you to hear it again, right? And sometimes we feel a little shame that we didn't catch it, all in the first time. And what I'd like to respectfully challenge you to do is to not be ashamed of that. That is a sign of maturity when you can say, I really didn't understand what you said. Could you repeat that? Asking questions is a great way. And once I started doing this, because I have this thing where once you tell me, I think I'm just supposed to get it. And when I started asking questions, I realized I wasn't getting things. I had a learning disability growing up. And so because I got smushed down as a child, asking a question always made me feel like I was stupid. And so I stopped asking questions. And so I had to learn how to start asking questions again as an adult. Choosing your words, right? We know that words are building blocks. And it really does help you have clear communication. And a lot can happen in a pause. It gives you an opportunity to choose your words and not just say the first thing that comes to your mouth. That makes sense. This one is a big one for me. Be authentic. And the hardest thing about being authentic is you might think that people don't like you. And I can guarantee you there will be people who don't like you. There are also going to be people who do like you. And it feels better when you can be your authentic self. And some of us don't know how to be our authentic selves because we don't know who we are. Sometimes this work is where we begin to learn who we are. And that's okay. I used to work at Rise, and we used to do these exercises in the studio. And one of the things that Alexia used to always say is be authentic. And it wasn't until I learned specific movements that I learned to be a little more freer with my body and to stand in my authentic truth, to be able to use the right words to show my authenticity. Right? This is not always easy to do when you don't know who you are. Right? So if you don't know who you are, there's some work you can do to find it out. And it always starts with just being honest with yourself. Who do I want to be? Right?
Yeah,
Say
just
again?
yeah, I was going to chime in really quick with that, being authentic and then letting the rest of the world adjust.
That's good. That is good. Thank you. Yeah, letting the rest of the world adjust, because God gonna sing in your people. I know that. So I move through my fear and I just show up as my authentic self. And that starts with acknowledging that, I'm a country girl from the city of Houston. I grew up in the city. I talk country. And I used to think that I had to code switch to be accepted. Right? And so I've learned how to let my authentic countryness come through and still be able to do the things that I need to do.
Same.
And I allowed that to show up in my work. And now I get to go places and be paid to be my authentic self. Yes, ma'am. All right, so we talked about verbal communication, but let's talk about nonverbal communication. And these are things we already know, our body language. People can tell when you are opened or closed. If you're not paying attention to the people in front of you, you won't see it. If you're so focused on what you're saying to them, you might miss an opportunity. Because when someone is closed, they're not hearing nothing you're saying. They are not hearing anything you are saying. They might pick up on pieces of it, right? But if their body language is closed, that is an opportunity for you to pause and ask questions. It is. Your tone matters. Being aware and paying attention to your pitch, the timing will help you emphasize the tone and eliminate miscommunication. I've been able to understand that when my tone goes a certain way, I know when I'm out of the zone that I need to be in. And I know when I'm shut down. And so my tone becomes very, very monotone. If you get range, if you get that I understand something, and I can articulate that back to you, I'm going to be excited. So my pitch might be a little higher. So think about that. Think about your tone. Pay attention to your tone. Ask people who you know. How do I come across? How does my tone come across? And the timing of what you say is super important. If you cut someone off in the middle of them talking, yeah, you've already lost them. We talked about facial expressions, just knowing that your eyes say a lot, how your eyes are focused, how your mouth looks, what your eyebrows do, if your nose flares up, yeah. But you won't see that if you're not looking, if you're not being socially aware. Eye contact. Yeah, being able to look at someone while they're talking to you is a valuable tool for communication. That lets them know that you are listening. And if you are the person who is talking and you're not giving the person eye contact, you might miss an opportunity to check in with something that may be going on with that person, if that makes sense. This is my favorite one, showing gratitude. People ask me all the time, how you doing, TaTa-Nisha? Grateful. That's all I have to say. I'm very grateful. And I know how to tell people that I'm grateful for them. When someone shows up in my life and they show me how to do something, I'm grateful for that. So show gratitude, show a little gratitude. And you can show gratitude to yourself as well. I always say it starts with you. Setting boundaries. This is a big one, right? Learning how to say no. Being assertive and not aggressive. Be firm in speaking up for yourself. When you notice that you say yes to everything, and I'm only talking about me right now, then you are lacking boundaries, right? Sometimes you have to pause and say, let me get back to you on that. And that's okay. Even if it's 20 minutes later or 5 minutes later, let me have a moment to think about that, right? I can be firm and not aggressive, right? Black women are always identified as being aggressive when really they are simply being assertive. But because we haven't been able to always use our voice, it comes off to aggressive to other people when we're really just trying to be heard and respected. Right? And now that I know how to be firm and speak up for myself, the way that I am assertive comes across a whole lot better. Right? Is there anyone who'd like to share about this setting boundaries? I'd love to hear from someone who hasn't shared.
So for me, I learned this in accountability court, drug court. I had to do it with my parents. So when I moved out of their house, my mom was used to just walking in. We've all always been used to just walking into each other's house. Well, I had to set boundaries with her because like she would just bust through the door, and I had since doing drug court started knocking on their door when I come over, but she wasn't paying the same respect. It was a hard thing to do, setting a boundary with my parents, but they respected it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have like 5 more minutes. I'm going to get through these slides really quickly, and I'm going to open it up for feedback or questions, and then we'll close out. All right. Let's do this this poll real quick.
Okay.
I feel like we should all get this one right. We've learned this in every training.
Uh-oh, we got some true and false, but
Oh, okay.
majority false. I'll go ahead and end it.
Okay, thank you.
Share the
Yes, so
results.
to react rather than respond. That was one of my biggest lessons early in this work that I'm currently doing. Trying to get this off the screen. All right. We're going to skip that. We're going to talk about overcoming obstacles. It's one of the things that I've learned about overcoming obstacles is that it goes back to being able to manage my emotions, but acknowledging that I may be having a challenge. But it's also really about learning how to do it well in certain areas of your life and giving yourself credit for doing that, right? To be able to recognize and admit failures is probably one of the best things you can do. I failed at that, but I also have another opportunity to learn again. Disagreeing constructively, being able to listen, to understand. You are already cut off if you are not trying to understand, right? Ask questions to ensure understanding and providing evidence to your explanation. It's real easy to disagree, but can you constructively do that and provide evidence of your explanation? Let's talk about some of the benefits of being emotionally aware. Being able to manage change. Communicate in a more positive manner will improve your relationships with everybody. Reduce stress and anxiety. Challenging situations are gonna happen, right? But breathing is one way that I manage that to reduce my stress and anxiety. Creating a powerful first impression. Be present. Be self-aware. If you don't know how to be self-aware, do a little bit of work on that. And there's some opportunities on my website to take a few classes to learn about that. Gaining self-confidence. The reason why I'm so confident is because I sat with myself. Now I know who I am for sure, right? And I am optimistic and I have positive views. I also have negative views, right? But because I know who I am, I'm very confident. I'm very authentic. It shows up in my confidence. So if you're not there yet, give yourself grace. Patience and practice, right? Just practice this and be patient with yourself. It does take conscious effort. You do have to be conscious of it. How can we become smarter with our emotional responses? Absolutely. That's right. Anything that makes us uncomfortable or evokes negative emotional responses. Incorporating stress relieving activities. Uh-oh, I done did something with my screen here. Yes. Mentally preparing for negative emotions when they occur. All right, so I want to thank you all for this opportunity. I do apologize that we weren't able to get through all the poll questions. I'm going to open the floor for about a minute or two. If there's anything you'd like to say, any feedback, any thoughts about this presentation, I'd be welcome to hear that.
And thank you for doing this, TaTa-Nisha. Again, y'all, this is a time for questions. Your certificates will be emailed to you from Alvin, either this week or next week. You will not get a copy of this presentation, but in the chat, I just put TaTa-Nisha's website and her email to contact her if you want this presentation done at your organization or facility. And I also put me and Alvin's email. If you have any questions about CEUs, just go to that, but we'll use this time to answer any questions about this specific presentation.
You sent us an email with all of that information in it?
I just put it in the chat.
There is one free class on my website. There is an opportunity to have these presentations done in the workplace, but you can also take those online classes.